We flipped our schedule a little bit because one of our colleagues is going to call in from the West Coast on the data group. And we thought 5:30 in the morning was a little bit rough for them. 6:30. So we pushed it back a little bit. So we're going to start actually on this an hour. We're going to do a little bit of follow-up yesterday. And then we're going to actually spend a little time looking at a document on teaming. So we talked a lot about, that was sort of foreshadowed a lot yesterday. Then we're going to do this hour or so on the data work group recommendations, which is our third work group, if you recall. And then finish up with getting some input out of you on some next steps. So Joanna, do you want to start with follow-ups or? Okay. So we're just really, we heard a lot of good insight yesterday. We just want to check our understanding on a few things and test a few things. So one thing is we heard that we recommended sort of the enhanced ABCs, and then we talked about sort of a checklist of like college navigation things, and that seemed to get fairly good resonance from folks. And there was then a number of people offering additional potential things on the checklist. And what we were wondering is that that's great. We agree with that. On the other hand, as some people mentioned, our checklist could be getting mighty long. And it might be also that maybe is that a checklist for every single kid, has to do every single thing, or is it a preponderance? So what we're wondering is should we work on having a thing like there's a subset that we say are sort of more or less essential for all, and then maybe another set that are like recommended, or is that too weak, or is that, or the enhanced version, start with the basics and work to the enhanced. Just some thoughts on how to handle what might be a rather lengthy list of things we're saying you have to keep track of for every kid. And it's fine if we can come back to it. But
just a quick thought. I'm wondering if they could roll up into each other. So if there's several pieces and then 5 out of 6 or whatever tips the flag or not.
Right.
That's kind of how we did our Learn to Life collective impact effort. You had those bright line markers at the top on the pipeline, and then the others rolled up to them, and the wiser practitioners knew to look at all of them, and the minimum you got folks to look at those that were the bright lines.
And I like the idea of recommendations, because it's not always applicable, and sometimes you do need to think outside the box for certain kids, and it might give you an idea of some things you didn't know, and some things are just irrelevant. It's like, well, he wouldn't need this, or she wouldn't need this. Oh, but I hadn't thought about that. So I think offering recommendations always come up as just a good way to help solve a problem.
I agree, and I think, so the values that would inform how I would answer that question are strong recommendation for things to start early. So, the things that could happen in middle school to prepare students for post-secondary. Let's make sure every young person has that. And then also, I'm concerned about intentional, implicit or explicit bias around what students do what.
Right.
And I'm not sure how to answer that in our recommendations, but I think we need to be really careful about that. So that everyone gets everything early can help with that. But I do think there's a set of things that everyone should have just in case, right? So every young person has what they need to go on to post-secondary when they graduate from high school, whether or not the adults in their lives kind of feel like that's what they would have to do.
Right. William?
Yeah, I think our suggestions were about, in particular, adding things around career, because this was very college-oriented. But I think if the principles are clear, right, that there are certain things that, being clear that there are certain things that kids do them, they're kind of ready.
Right.
Then whether some stuff is framed as recommendations or not, there's an anchor for people to understand. This is about some relatively straightforward things that kids can accomplish to be ready for these 2 tasks.
And Andrew's suggestion before is to bring that in early, really takes you away from the divide you put in the counter in high school where old folks and academic, you end up back and start in middle school. And maybe lay the foundation and get around that before you get into that.
Are these, do they have to be for individual students in terms of their own behavior or what they did? Or could it be a matter of access to things?
I mean, I think what we're trying to work through is that, remember this sort of the set, some of the things on that set are like, if you don't do them, you're really constraining your options. If you don't pull out the financial aid form, right, you're really limiting some options, right? If you don't, actually apply anywhere at the right time, right, you're limiting your options, right? So we're trying to, I think there's some that you start early and some that are later gates, but are still sort of necessary gates. And then I guess you could err on over-subscribing kids is probably safer than under. It's like, yeah, some kids may fill out things they won't use, but if it just becomes normative, maybe that's a safer course. I mean, that's what we're trying to like juggle.
So I don't know how to do this, but what we do in APS in practice, we have 6 indicators that we look at: FAFSA completion, applying to college, taking SAT, et cetera. And then in the schools, the college advisors, when they're drilling down to the students, if they see students that haven't done any of the like college things, there's often pushback of, oh, well, not everyone's going to go to college. But what we push is then there's another indicator that every senior, and we come in late, it's senior year, every senior has to have a meeting with this college advisor to just sort of suss out whether where the student's interest lies. And it's a way of just essentially saying, like, we're not going to write the kid off. We want the kid to know if they're interested in college, that they can sort of help them navigate. I mean, we'd love to start earlier, but
Yes, like in Chicago, they've been doing, they have Naviance, universal Naviance in all elementary and high schools, and there's an expectation that everybody's using it from like grades 6 to 12, and they have like a whole checklist, and apparently like central offices, and I don't know if they actually like this, but they are monitoring the percentage of students within a given school and a given grade who are completing particular tasks that are supposed to be happening at a given grade. And so it's pretty heavy-handed in some ways, but there's like this universal expectation, it's college and career benchmarks, and it's all leading up to the new graduation requirement that's going to be coming into play, and I think, 3 years from now, where in order to graduate, a student has to have either an acceptance to a letter of acceptance from a college, a job offer, or evidence that they've enlisted in the military. And so that's also being tracked, and the plan is to have these letters have to be turned over to a counselor, and they'll be uploaded into Naviance to demonstrate evidence that a student actually has a concrete post-secondary plan. So there's a whole range of ways that we'll be thinking about these things.
You can go from the Chicago Strong model to the Light Recommend model, right?
We're somewhere over here, probably.
There's like 40 developmental assets has the, so many assets you have, and hence you are on your way.
Right.
I wonder if there is also a magic number that
Yes.
if you're doing a few of these things, then you at least the child then set up for.
Or is it a core and a plus? Like
Exactly.
a core plus a few, like a number of, but not specific. So,
Yeah, my work with post-secondary checklists has made me very aware, I think, of both their potential value to counselors and also their potential limitations. And I love the idea of, at some level, having like a universal one-on-one conferencing with a counselor. I would say that where that can be implemented, that's excellent. But if it's consistently every student has to sit down once, I would say that belongs conceptually sort of like in a tier 1 universal implementation. And so I think if you're going to have a post-secondary checklist in addition to that, the value of the checklist should come from, notwithstanding the fact that everybody sits down once with the college advisor, some number of students will then go on to not apply or not apply to enough places or not fill out their FAFSA.